Hey, what's up? Today I wanted to do a little sort of tutorial video, just a kind of a general beginner's tutorial. And the reason I'm doing this is because, like, on a lot of the covers that I do, I get a lot of requests like, can you send me the tabs, or, you know, and I try to respond and, send them out when I can, but the thing is, I don't really use, like, written tabs very much, so, yeah, so it's not like I have, like, tab files already set up for every cover, that I can just actively send out, so, and it does take a little bit of time to write a tab, because you have to, like, they have those tab editing programs, which I guess I've just never really got around to downloading, but, the way I always did tabs was just, hold down the dash button and make the tab lines, and then, just go space by space, put the numbers in. And that takes a little bit of time, so, yeah, so, I'm not trying to do this video just to get out of doing that. I'm still going to try and do that when I can, but, I figured what would be more valuable than that is to just, give you some basic tips that can, like, help you try and figure songs out on your own, basically, so, and, some of this stuff may be very simple, so, but, to someone who's just beginning guitar, or maybe someone who's just, having trouble figuring out songs on their own, might be useful. So, alright, I guess the first thing I would say is, there's no, or at least for me, there's no real secret to doing this. It's, ever since I can remember, I would start out by just trying to match the notes up, just by humming them and trying to, find where that note is on the guitar. So, like, if I was trying to play, like, I don't know, what's Smoke on the Water, that's a pretty recognizable song. Like, the first note is like, I think it's So, like, yeah, so I would just find that note by going up and down the fretboard until I reach that note. So, I just go, and that's the first note. And, yeah, there's, it takes a little while to do, and, it's not as easy as just going and having somebody, like, send you a tab, or finding a tab yourself, but, that's how I do it, and that's how I continue to do it even after 5 years of straight playing, pretty much. So that's the main thing right there. If you can match the tones in the song with your voice, if you can hum along to a song, you should be able to figure out, which notes to play. And even if obviously you want to find the chords and not just play, like, the single notes. So that's as easy as just, like, the first note of that song would be this right here, which is E string 3rd fret, and that's just, if you know the notes on a fretboard, which, you can always look those up, and you don't have to necessarily memorize them or anything, but, yeah, so that first note right there is a G, so if you just play the G chord, then that's going to be, the first chord. And, my guitar's a little bit out of tune, but I'm not going to bother tuning it for this. Yeah, so, like, I remember first trying to learn songs, and, when I first started playing, maybe I only knew, like, you know, the regular chords, like A, B, C, D, F, G, H. No, I'm just kidding. And then, you know, maybe some minors of those, A minor, B minor, whatever. And, you know, I would literally just go through and, you know, when I wasn't as good as picking out the pitches, you know, I would just go through those one by one and be like, alright, which one matches up? A, B, C, D, and just go through all of them. And eventually, you know, after you do this for a few songs and you figure them out on your own, it just gets easier and easier to find out, you know, what you're supposed to be playing. And then you can start figuring out more complex songs. The one thing that a lot of people maybe have trouble with is, like, figuring out where to put your capo. And if you don't have a capo, I definitely recommend getting one, because a lot of songs, especially a lot of, like, popular songs, do use it. So, you know, like capo 3rd fret or whatever, you see that a lot. Capo on the 1st fret. I have this, who makes this thing? I don't know. Some Shub or Shub, S-H-U-B-B, I don't know how you pronounce that. But I like this one better because it has this adjustable little thing right here, which, you know, you can use it on basically any size guitar neck, unless you have, like, some crazy, like, thick neck or something, like an 8-string. But even that would probably still work. But yeah, this is definitely much better than one of those capos where you just, you know, squeeze it and then put it on, and it just kind of is like a one-size-fits-all thing. Because those, I over time, like, you know, I used to have one of those, and I noticed that it was kind of, especially on my acoustic, it was pressing the strings down way too hard, so that kind of distorts the pitch and messes with the tuning. This one, I mean, you don't really need for a capo to be crushing the strings into the neck. Like, if it's just held down, you know, just barely, you know, you want it to have some pressure at least, but like there's barely any pressure on these strings right now. Like, it's the perfect size, and that will, you know, help the guitar to kind of keep its tune even as you put the capo on different frets and such. Let's see, like, yeah, so when you're trying to figure out where to put the capo, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of trial and error, at least for me. I mean, I'm sure, you know, somebody who's more well-versed in music theory and who knows, you know, all the notes on the fretboard, I'm sure they'd be able to figure it out much more quickly. But usually what I will do is, I'll basically just, you know, I'll basically fret every single note with my finger until I find, like, the first note of, you know, the song that I'm trying to play. So, like, a couple days ago I was trying to figure out a Gorillaz song, and it kind of has, like, a tricky, little intro part. It's kind of like, it's weird to play, especially if you don't have a capo. So, what a capo can do is basically just makes it a lot easier to play certain songs, because then you have the open note, which, you know, instead of fretting a note, maybe the note that you need is really far down the neck and you're mostly playing notes up here. It helps you to basically, you know, have that note permanently fretted, so that you don't have to, like, make some crazy, like, hand stretch or something just to get that sound. You know, pretty basic stuff, I guess. But for example, the first note of the song is that right there, which is, I guess, a G as well. Yeah, so, I mean, that would be on the 3rd fret, so first thing I tried, obviously, was capo 3, and then you just find, you know, where the second notes are, and it kind of came out to this little riff here, which, I don't know if I can play it. Well. Yeah, so that's like the little intro part to that song, and you know, without a capo, you might have to do some more fretting up here, or like, you know, just go a little higher up on the neck, which, you know, is kind of annoying to do on an acoustic, especially if you don't have this like cutaway section like my guitar does. Because a lot of the acoustics you see, you know, they'll just, this whole space here will just be filled in, so, you know, you'll have to make some weird kind of stretch to really reach those notes, and it just feels awkward. So a capo definitely helps with that. What else do I want to go over? More beginner stuff. You know, I feel like for some reason a lot of people don't realize, you know, a lot of beginners don't realize, you know, the use of power chords, which, I mean, you can pretty much achieve any note with a power chord, like with this formation right here. Just, you know, for example, like a G power chord would be like, you know, 1st fret on the E string, and then the 5th fret on the next 2 strings. So and you can just move that shape anywhere on the fretboard. Go all the way up, and then you can do the same thing with the, if you move that chord shape down 1 string. So instead of starting on the E string, you start on the A, and then, you know, you do a space between there and the next 2 strings. So be like that. And, you know, I cover a lot of Modest Mouse songs, so, you know, when I was first learning those, that was just the easiest way to do it. Like, find the power chord first, and then, which is like pretty much the simplest thing other than playing just single notes. So, you know, first you find the single note, then you find kind of the power chord, and then you make a variation on that chord, either by, you know, adding some other notes, like, and that's just, you know, me fretting the B string, you know, so that's the next string down. And, you know, you can mute the middle string, so, you know, you basically, with your index finger, you basically just have it touching the next string in the sequence, so that, you know, you get that sound out of it, which is no sound at all. And that kind of, well, I don't know, it changes the sound a little bit, so you can hear the difference between, like, and then, yeah, so, and you'll see that a lot in, like, Modest Mouse songs, you know. Trying to think of an example. That's from I've Got It Almost, very roughly played. Yeah, so muting, that's one technique, and then, you know, if you want to make it like a major chord, I guess, you know, you would take that same, well, you have to start on the E string, and then you take that same shape, the 3, 5, 5, or, you know, whatever, 4, 6, 6, 5, 7, 7, as long as there's, you know, space between. And then you just add in your middle finger right there, and that will be on the, you know, that string right there, the G string, and that gives it a different sound as well. It makes it kind of more brighter sounding, major sounding. So that compared to just that sounds a little bit different. And then if you move that formation down again, starting on the A string, let's say 5th fret, so 5, 7, 7, and then if you do 5, 7, 7, 6, that makes it a minor chord. And you know, the same falls with these chords, you just use them all the way up and down the fretboard. There's an A minor, that's pretty common right there. Not to say that all minor chords are going to be in that formation, but that's just, you know, one tip if you're trying to find a specific chord. Like the E minor is just going to be like, you know, A and the D string on the 2nd fret. So that one's a little bit different. I mean, obviously there's a million chord charts, and you know, you can look up thousands of chords, and it's pretty much, the possibilities are pretty almost infinite, I guess. Yeah, so you can always look those up and just keep practicing different chord formations. When I first started, I would basically, you know, my goal sort of was to just, you know, try and find chords that didn't sound normal. So I would just basically like put my fingers in random weird positions and see what sounded good. And, you know, maybe you come up with something like, or like, there's another chord shape I like right there, which is just starting on the A string. You do, like, for example, 7, 9, 6, or 7, 9, 8, 9, and that's just like a, same thing with that. You can go, like a more of a jazzy chord, or, you know, a lot of times you'll hear chords like that in like shoegaze type songs and such. What else is there? Well, the one thing that sort of annoys me is when, you know, I mean, there's obviously you know, like 100 different sites for looking up tabs for songs, and you know, a lot of them are not correct, which, you know, I can see why somebody would ask for a tab if they know that, you know, what I'm playing in a video, if they think that it sounds correct, then, you know, they might request a tab for that because the ones online aren't 100% accurate or whatever. But I mean, it's not like everything I play is exactly how the song sounds either. So, but I do try to get as close as possible, just because, you know, I like to achieve, you know, a very similar sound to the original, just to kind of pay it respect or whatever, or pay it homage, whatever you want to call it. yeah, but I mean, if there's a song, I mean, chances are there could be a tab for it. So, I mean, it's as easy as going on Google and typing in song name tab or song name chords, and it'll link you to probably ultimateguitar.com, which is, even I use that sometimes when I'm just like, I don't really feel like trying to figure this out by myself. I'll just go up there and see if there's any tabs that are, pretty close or even perfect, maybe. A lot of times they are pretty accurate. I mean, they're all rated by stars, so, I mean, you can tell which ones are good and which ones are bad. Yeah, so, I mean, always try to look up the tab first. I mean, that's just something that every beginner guitar player should know. I mean, you shouldn't have to rely on somebody else who may or may not, be able to get back to you to get the tab, because there's plenty of sources to find it. I mean, unless you're listening to some really obscure stuff, but I mean, you'd be surprised what's up there. I found tabs for things that I didn't even think there would be any tabs at all. So, and even if they're not 100% correct, you can see what you can gain from the tab itself, and make adjustments as you see necessary. I mean, not every person who's covering a song, their goal is not always going to be to match it perfectly. Like, you might want to give it your own sound or whatever, or just make some adjustments to better fit your vocal style or your vocal range. And, I mean, as far as vocal range, I mean, you can always, if you have a capo, you can always, try the capo in different positions and just play the same chords, and then, you just raise your voice up an octave or whatever works for you until you find a good tone or whatever. What else is there? As far as I mean, if you're really beginning guitar and you just barely can even transition between chords, I mean, that's one of the most important things that you can practice, is just the chords don't even have to sound good in sequence. Just play random chords and keep just transitioning between them, and then eventually you'll be able to you'll just kind of know what you're supposed to play, and you'll remember, oh yeah, that sounds like an A minor, or that sounds like a C chord, or maybe it sounds like a C chord except it's just up a few frets, same chord shape. So yeah, I mean, that's what I did when I was beginning. I was just playing random chords actually sounded pretty good. And obviously, I mean, you don't have to start with bar chords or anything like that. I mean, because that's something that will be much easier to do once you've gained enough finger strength, because for a lot of people it's hard for them to hold down all the strings of a fret and then hold down other notes as well. But I mean, after a while of doing it, it seems like at first you have to press down really hard, or it'll just sound like you'll just get the frets being all buzzy sounding and it sounds like garbage. But now it's I barely feel like I even have to hold it down at all. I just put the slightest amount of pressure and it's a clean chord, and that's just you gain the finger strength. Another important thing to realize is that a lot of playing is muscle memory, and you know, even if you're not, you know, if you're really having trouble like playing some kind of, you know, note sequence or whatever, the more you play it, I mean, you could practice the riff for 5 minutes one night, and then you should recognize that the next day when you go back to it, it'll at least be slightly easier. I mean, it should be slightly easier. That's just how muscle memory works. It does a lot of the work for you. Like, sometimes I would even, you know, I'd play a riff or whatever, and I would suck at it at first, and then, you know, you get a good night's rest, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll even dream about playing the riff or something like that, which is pretty crazy, but I've actually had that happen a lot, where, you know, I dream about something that I learned the previous day, and then when I go back to it the next day, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this. Like, this feels so much like easier now. Like, it's ingrained in my mind. And that goes for everything. Like, you know, if I start a new job and I learn something new, I might even, you know, dream about doing that, and that just makes it all the more memorable the next day. And, like, you know, for the riff I was playing earlier for that Gorilla song, like, that was a little bit hard to play, just because of, like, you know, the one open note being on the last string. I'm usually used to, like, open notes being more on the 4 middle string, so it was kind of weird to learn that, and I was definitely having trouble with it at first, even though it's, you know, it's not that difficult once you get it. And the thing that I find a lot of times is that, you know, if you think about what you're doing too much, it's going to make you mess up more. Like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if you're playing basketball or something, you're just really nervous about, like, making your free throw. You know, chances are you might miss, and you might just be overthinking it too much, and, you know, you think about where your hands are positioned on the ball, and, like, you're just, like, overanalyzing every aspect of it, like how it's going to roll off your fingers, when you should really just, you know, let your body do the work, because, you know, you have the muscle memory of what it's like to throw a ball and to make the shot. The same thing applies with the guitar. And muscle memory, I mean, yeah, it's like, the way that I learned this riff was to just stop looking at my fingers, stop looking at the fretboard, stop thinking about what notes I'm playing, and just think about the tones of the strings that I'm hitting, and, like, the rhythm that my picking hand is making, rather than this hand, because, you know, really for that riff, I'm not really moving this hand that much. I'm just, you know, going from this position to, like, that position, so it's not really that much of a difference. It was mainly the picking hand that was having trouble, like, hitting the correct notes in the correct sequence. So, you know, once you get that rhythm going down, I mean that it's the same kind of thing that would help me, like, learn a song like Street Spirit by Radiohead, like, capo right there, but it'd be like, first just started to play that, I was actually thinking about what I was supposed to be playing, and I messed up. And then, as soon as I looked away from the fretboard and just let my hand do the work, then I was playing it fine. That happens for most songs that I learn, unless they're just, you know, chords. It's not really that much thinking involved, other than, you know, you're just making the transitions between the chords. Um, yeah, and muscle memory, I mean, when you think of the word muscle, you think about, exercise, working out, like, and that's really all that it is. I mean, and, it's going to take different amounts of time depending on the person, to learn a riff, depending on how, some people have natural talent where, they pick up a guitar and a month later they're have made like amazing progress. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm a natural, because I've definitely had trouble with certain things. Like, I mean, even to this day, like playing like fast solos and doing sweep picking just seems like nearly impossible. Even though, I mean, I've practiced so many times, just like. That's not sweep picking. That's just picking the notes. But so I can't even do it. I haven't tried that in so many months that. Yeah, I can't even do it. See, I would have to like practice that for like 10 minutes at least before I could even get close to being able to do it again. Yeah, so certain things, I mean, it almost seems like your mind just has like a sort of like a deficiency in that area, or lacks the ability to like understand the motion or something like that. And everyone's got a different mind, and yeah, so it's going to take some time. And maybe if you're not a natural, you might get frustrated and just be like, maybe you're playing guitar with your friends and they're learning faster than you, and that can definitely be discouraging. I mean, I've seen it happen plenty of times with people that I've known. But, you just got to keep doing it like as if you were doing a regular exercise routine or something, and, you will get it eventually if you're serious about wanting to learn it. I mean, that's the main thing is, how badly do you want to learn how to play this song? Do you kind of just want to learn how to play it? And, if that's the case, then maybe you won't have the drive to spend the time to figure it out, which that happens plenty of times for me where, I'll hear a song and so it'll be something that I would really want to be able to play, but it's just, I quickly begin to realize that it's kind of beyond my abilities at this moment, and I just don't have the motivation to practice it every day, for a month to get it right. But some songs I have learned and they have taken a month, Other songs, I mean, a lot of the times that I'm lucky enough to be at a skill level where, I can look at a tab, and as long as it's not too crazy, I can pretty much learn it right on the spot, and I can basically almost play it like off of the tab just by almost like reading sheet music, which I have never been able to really do. I mean, I can look at sheet music and be like, all right, that's an F, that's G, and obviously that's not efficient enough to just sight read. I always think, if I would have learned sight reading earlier and maybe taken music lessons in school, maybe I'd be able to do that. And it's kind of a skill that I wish I did have, not only for the reading, but for, writing something out that I have composed. I've written a few songs in tab just in case I forget them, basically, but usually I remember most songs. I mean, pretty much every song that I've done a cover of, which I've done at least a couple hundred, there's been some repeats, but every song that I've done a cover of, I can pretty much pick up right now and just start playing it, so I almost have like a repertoire of songs that has just accumulated over the years, and I like to a lot of the times play, just chords, which, it can kind of take some of the complexity out of the song, but the main reason that I've always stuck to chords is not only because it's easy and, it's just, it's not only the fact that it's easy to pick up. I mean, a chord is easy enough to play if you're already pretty well versed in playing other chords. But yeah, the other reason I have mainly stuck to that is because, I've never really had a great sound recording setup where I could, record multiple guitar tracks and such and still have it sound good. Unfortunately, I'm sure I could have bought the necessary equipment 20 times over had I not, just spent money on, stupid things like video games aren't stupid, I'm not saying that, but I've spent a lot of money on them over the years. Not so much anymore, but I'm sure if I would have just, held off on a few purchases, I would have had enough money. Video games, beer, whatever, money goes other places and you don't really think about it, but if you would have saved it, you could have reached your goal in a pretty quick amount of time. So yeah, and playing single notes is, it just doesn't sound full enough to, especially when you only have one guitar. I mean, I would much rather just play the chords, and the main thing is, I love playing guitar, obviously. I've always had an interest in it. But there's definitely been times where I have just kind of lost the desire to play as much. I play pretty much every day now, and I have for long periods of time, but there's also been periods of time where I was just like, I feel like, I don't know, I've done everything that I can do at this point, I could learn some new stuff, but it would take some dedication, and maybe I'm just kind of too lazy or just working too much to really want to spend time on that. It's hard to, work 60 hours a week and then go home and be like, oh, I want to, practice songs and stuff. In the past, I would just want to, sit around and just relax, basically, not think about anything too hard. Just to give my mind some, mental time to itself. But I've also found that can sometimes be detrimental. If you think too much and when you start getting depressed, then it's just not good, but that's just me. And yeah, where I was going with that was, I've always had an interest in singing much more than playing guitar. So playing the guitar is basically just the background noise for me to sing to, and the more noise that there is and the fuller it sounds, the easier it is for me to record videos that actually sound decent and not just me singing along to some single notes that I'm playing, because that just sounds empty and boring to me. I've always enjoyed singing much more. And I'm the kind of person where I'm not really that comfortable singing in front of other people unless I know them really well. And even then, I still have my hesitations, to go all out. And it really takes a lot out of me to go perform, outside of my home, alone. Even to go play an open mic for a bunch of college students who I know are going to clap no matter what I play, and they're not going to say anything bad, and they're not going to, boo me off the stage or anything. Even that, the moments where I am actually playing in front of the crowd, I barely feel like I'm even there. I'm just completely focused on what I'm doing, and I'm so worried about making a mistake, even though you know, half the time they probably wouldn't even realize it was a mistake, and even if they did, they wouldn't really care because it's not like they're expecting like some prodigy to go up there and start like entertaining them to the max or something. Like open mics are just for kind of experimenting and, you know, getting some experience playing live, which I've done probably like less than 10 open mics in my life, and you know, they've all gone fairly well. I haven't like completely failed a song to the point where I was just like, I can't play it, sorry, bye. That's never happened, you know, but I have made some mistakes, and you always reflect on those, or I always reflect on those, because I hate making mistakes, and I'm not like always proud of the performances that I do, even though, you know, they all go pretty decent, and some of them I'm happy with, and I think they went really well, because for some reason I just had a, you know, lower anxiety level that day. But yeah, it's hard for me to do that, and I feel like that's one of the main things that's holding me back from really moving forward with music, because right now I'm basically just, for the past few years, I've basically just been working, you know, working in restaurants, getting paid under the table, and now I'm actually getting paid in real checks and everything, and I'm gonna have health insurance and benefits and such, which is nice, but, you know, it's still, I feel like, a lot of the times I feel like what I'm doing is kind of unfulfilling, like I'm not making any real progress, and that kind of gets depressing sometimes. I'm doing better now, and I feel like, you know, I can accept the fact that I'm not really moving forward with what I really want to be doing, which is music. But you know, I'm content with what I have right now, and I went to college for a couple years, and I realized that it was not for me. You know, maybe someday I'll go back, but I really just didn't see the point of it. It was just, I felt like every second I was in there I was wasting money and wasn't learning anything, and it was just way too stressful. Like, you know, I got almost straight A's throughout college, but I just felt like it wasn't worth it. Like, it was just so mentally taxing, and you know, I had like 3 classes for my major each semester, and like 2 other classes, so full-time student, and also was working, and you know, I also wanted to have time to hang out with friends and just do, you know, my kind of stuff that I liked to do, and it was giving me just no time. It was robbing me of pretty much everything that I liked. So one day, you know, it was like I had like 80 pages to read for every class, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, and it was just the driest material ever. Like, I thought that information technology would be something I'd be good at, because I'm good with computers, you know, to some level. I'm interested in technology, and I feel like I have a good mind for that, but being in the classes, it was just like, oh, here's a 3-hour class from 6 to 9, and all we're going to do is read PowerPoints about Windows Server 2008, and it's just like nonsense. I felt like I was just like staring through the screen, and I didn't even want to learn at a certain point. I was just like, no, I don't want this useless information in my head. Like, it's not even worth the time. So yeah, one day I was just like, I'm not going anymore. I'm done. I don't care. Like, I'd much rather be working some shitty job any day than subjecting myself to this just sunk cost of going to school, learning nothing, and, you know, maybe I'd come out with a degree, but I mean, I probably would have had I stuck with it, even if I was worried about getting bad grades at the times when I just had way too much work, and yeah, it wasn't worth it. I mean, that's not to say that it's not, not for, it's definitely worth it for some people. But I feel like an increasing number of people are beginning to realize that you don't have to go to college to be successful, and, you know, I'm always of the feeling, I always feel like, you know, you only have one life, you only have so much time, you never know when your time is up, and for me, wasting time, or feeling like I'm wasting time, is the worst thing possible, and it just makes me go crazy. I have dreams about, you know, being late for things, and just not having enough time to accomplish, you know, certain goals. Like, I always have this dream where, like, I'll be, like, you know, vacationing somewhere, and then I remember that, like, I'm supposed to be at work in, like, an hour, and I'm, like, 10 hours away, and I'm just like, oh, God, what am I gonna do? Like, so I always have these stressful dreams about that, and, like, about, like, having a project due that, I have nowhere near enough time for unless I, like, stay up for, like, 48 hours straight and work constantly, which I have done that before. I actually had an English final for my honors women's literature class, which, I mean, it wasn't that bad of a class, and luckily the teacher was nice, and the professor was nice, I mean. But I was putting the project off because that's what I always do. I just procrastinate, and because it's just so hard to just sit